It's episode 11 of season 2 of the Exit Philosophy podcast. Scott MacArthur and Rich Griffin. And if you're watching on our YouTube page, youtube.com/exit philosophy, you, if you even noticed it, may wonder what the hell the background is behind me. I will let Griff tee that up. I'm not just going to get into it right now, but I can tell by the head nod, Griff, because we've talked about this off air. I think you're sitting in judgment of me right now. I think you're judging me. I'm feeling judged.
Well, for 2 weeks, you had the Exit Philosophy logo behind you, and you ghosted your way through that. And now you have another one. Looks like the San Francisco Giants, but it's not. Can you explain? There you go. You disappeared for a moment for those of you watching on YouTube.
Okay, so I figured it's time to actually have a background, because I think we talked about it on the podcast, tried to limit the discussion about it because obviously this is an audio medium first, although as I alluded to a minute ago, we do have the YouTube page, youtube.com/exit philosophy. You can watch us doing this. But I found that my background in my apartment was too dark. And the dark wooden cupboards behind me, and I felt like I was fading back into that. It was like this constant war with the ring light and the natural light coming in from the window. So I closed the blinds, and then it would properly adjust, and then I'd darken again, and it would be hard to see me. And it was this war with the lighting for months. So I thought, I'm going to just superimpose a background, and why not put the Exit Philosophy podcast logo back there? But the people who run the ship, tightly controlled, say no bueno. So not happening anymore. So this logo says Parks, and it's kind of a San Francisco Giants motif. Mike Wilner, our good friend, runs what I will colloquially call a nerd baseball league. And I am one of 14 people in this simulated baseball league that we play using a computer game. And our season starts this week. And you probably know of, at least, the old Richard Harris song, MacArthur Park. So we're in year 4 of the league, and when we launched in 2021, I named my team the MacArthur Parks, and we play out of Oracle Park in San Francisco, and that's the explanation. I am in a year-over-year keeper nerd baseball league, Griff. That's what this is.
I thought maybe it had something to do with Nova Scotia Parks and Rec or something, but no, it's your fantasy league, and you're welcome to your fantasies, whatever they are.
Yeah, we could write a book about those. So we're going into year 4, but anyway, Wilner won the championship in year 1. I won the championship in year 2. Wilner won in year 3, so Wilner's the defending champion. We got a lot of really great people. Some Hollywood types, some musicians, some sports writers, and broadcasters from down in the States. So it's a fun group, and it's been a great way to connect and network with people that, otherwise our paths may never cross. So we have a lot of fun with it, and we play a 78-game season. So a 3-game series each week. Each game's about a half an hour. So you take 90 minutes to 2 hours. And 26 weeks times 3 games per week, 78 games, and we get into the playoffs, and by early November, we're done. It's fun. You should join, Griff.
No, thanks.
We'll discuss expansion.
Before we get into baseball discussion, it is our friend John Lott's 8th birthday today, and I went out to lunch with him and the group last week, and I know that you've got birthday wishes for him. He's sort of a mentor for you, I believe.
Yeah, John and I, my first year on the beat was 2013, and it takes time to get to know people, and with John, it felt like it happened really quickly. And we, through the last decade plus, have been able to stay in touch and to make each other laugh. I knew about that birthday lunch and wish I could have been there. Geography was a bit of a challenge, but you guys had that for John and surprised him a week and a half ago. Truly one of the great baseball writers this country has produced. And I'm sure I will get a text if he listens to this episode, excoriating me for even suggesting that he is among the best. But he is, and he's also a wonderful guy. So a very happy 80th birthday to our dear friend and my dear friend, John Lott. And when I'm back in the GTA very soon, you can expect me to be annoying you so that I can take you to lunch for your birthday and you can tell me that I'm out to lunch.
We like to do rankings on this show, and I would put John Lott in my top 5 of baseball reporters in the last 25 years.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Well, I don't want to say number 1 because some people would get mad at me. So if I say top 5,
it leaves room for
variation. Going, oh, I'm sure I'm in the top 5, which works out great.
Absolutely. So, but a very happy birthday, John. Here's to many more good years of health and happiness, and look forward to seeing you soon. And I know John. I'm pretending that John might be listening right now. We do get occasional feedback, which tells me, Griff, we're probably onto something in saying that John's listening. Look forward to the feedback, John. And I know you will be watching from pitch 1 to the end of inning 9 each and every day this season. You're locked right in.
So what's our leadoff topic this week, Scotty?
Well, how are your ankles, Griff? Your ankles okay?
Yeah, my ankles are good.
Your ankles are fine. My ankles are fine too. My shoulder and my back aren't, but my ankles are fine. So Joey Votto hits a home run against a legitimate pitcher, the Phillies' Zach Wheeler, on the first pitch he sees in Grapefruit League action. And then I guess as he's celebrating the home run in the dugout or as he's descending the steps and then giving high fives, there's a bat lying around and he steps on it accidentally and turns his ankle, and he's got a bit of an ankle sprain, so a slight setback for him. We can get into that. But, I don't, and we've made a point, Griff, of not wanting to make too much of the spring. But I have to say, in the smallest of small sample sizes, if you step into the batter's box, I don't care if it's March 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. I don't care if it's August 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. And you take Zach Wheeler, oppo, to left center on your first swing in a big league spring training game of the year, there's something in there. I don't know if there's something in there for 6 months. Only 6 months of data would tell us, but there is something in there with Joey Votto. And that's exciting.
Don't forget that in his first plate appearance of the spring for the Blue Jays, Daniel Vogelbach took Garrett Cole deep. Right. And then did his bat flip. It got Garrett pissed off, but we know how easy Garrett is to get pissed off.
But Garrett had no elbow, Griff. We've learned he had no elbow. I'm kidding.
So now we got Joey Votto, and there's 3 factors in the Joey Votto injury, and it's got to rank in the top 10. We like doing rankings of freak spring training injuries that I've seen. But one is originally he stopped at second base thinking it was a double. And even if it was a double, the umpires got together and said, let's give him a home run. It's Joey Votto. They probably have good communications and good relationships with Joey Votto, so they give him the home run. It might have hit the yellow line at the top of the fence, but it's spring training. I remember
he also still hit it that far, Griff.
Yeah, no doubt. But he wouldn't have hurt himself if he had stopped at second if they'd given him a double. I remember, and it is spring training, and I remember 1986 spring training, where the PR guys, and there's a clear conflict of interest, are the official scorers at exhibition games, and we, with the Expos, had given Andres Galarraga the first base job, traded away all the competition, so he was the first baseman. And he was hitless as we were packing to head to Vancouver for a weekend exhibition series that included Seattle, and I think the Blue Jays were there. So he was hitless in Florida. And so he hit a ground ball to the left of the shortstop. The ball bounced up, hit the shortstop in the chest, and the official scorer, who was me, gave him a hit just because I didn't want him leaving Florida 0 for 35. So he was 1 for 35. And that's how meaningless, this was 1986, that's how meaningless Florida spring training games are, and why it doesn't matter whether you got the double or a home run. So umpires, give them a home run. The second thing is it's a split squad game, which means you've got your B crew of dugout and clubhouse guys there. And so who leaves a bat on the floor of the dugout except the B team? It's a split squad. They're playing in Dunedin. And so the bat is lying there. Joey Votto comes down the steps on it, rolls his ankle. Boom, that's it. And that rolling your ankle could be various levels. I remember Troy Finley in a game, my catcher in a Coba championship, chased a foul pop, and the hitter had thrown his bat and it rolled under the grass, and Troy stepped on it. I think severely high ankle sprained himself and was out, and we lost. And so that, if it's that severe for Joey Votto, it could set him back a little bit. And if it wasn't a split squad, that wouldn't have happened. So there's factor number 2. Factor number 3, which I pointed out on Twitter, is bring back the home run jacket, because if he was obliged to stop and put on the home run jacket, things would have been completely different. He wouldn't have rushed down the dugout steps, and he would have saved his ankle. So there's 3 arguments: no more split squads, home run jacket return, and umpires call everything a home run. Thank you. That's my soapbox.
So you've essentially built in the Joey Votto excuse machine. He could pretend to be George Costanza. The world's against me. I mean, had it been a double and not a home run, had it not been the B team, had I been able to put on the jacket and bought 10 more seconds and someone removed the bat. Speaking of which, and I don't want to digress too far on this, but you see the Yankees are having a George Costanza bobblehead day.
Yeah, well, when you mentioned that, I thought immediately of their impending fabulous tribute to the assistant to the traveling secretary, George Costanza. That's a great move.
Well, they need to, I would love a big Seinfeld fan, right? And I think if you're 35 or older, probably 40 or older to be more direct, but 35 or older, you probably lived that show as it was happening. And so you remember a lot of the episodes when they first came out. But if they can do that up, it'd be amazing. Jason Alexander, who played George Costanza, get him there. Danny Tartable.
Yeah.
Danny Tartable was in multiple Seinfeld episodes, right? I mean, he was in the one where the guy was giving them the finger, but he actually had a broken finger or something. It was and Tartable was also in the one where he was eating the chocolate bar with the knife and fork.
Yeah.
So Tartable is a big one. Costanza and Buck Showalter, the polyester cotton uniforms, the great line that, when George wasn't having sex because his girlfriend had mono, so he got smarter as the days without sex went by. Elaine, being a woman, apparently got dumber as the days without sex went by for whatever's going on with her boyfriend. But Costanza's given Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams this epic science lesson on hitting, and Jeter looks at him and says, well, we won the World Series in 6 games. right?
Yeah,
That was after
they always had terrific
it was great.
episodes with baseball references.
But get like Tartable, I
Yeah.
don't know.
And
Jeter
so
would show up,
now they're paying tribute to the Seinfeld series after the Seinfeld series spent 9 years giving tribute to the Yankees and to baseball. So I think it's a fair.
Right.
It the gap between the end of Seinfeld and this giveaway, this what are they calling it? George Costanza giveaway bobblehead.
Yeah, like the bobblehead looks like George as best they could do it, and I think along the base of it, it says assistant to the traveling secretary.
It takes the heat off of what I thought was the least timely giveaway in the history of giveaways, which was in Montreal with the Expos, and Urban Cowboy had been a huge movie hit. Everybody's wearing cowboy gear, Western gear, and riding electronic bulls or whatever you call them. And the Expos, 3 years after the movie, decided to give away red, white, and blue logo cowboy hats. And I'm thinking this might be the worst timing of any giveaway I've ever seen. And it was. And there are still probably, I don't know, thousands of Urban Cowboy Expos hats, Expos Stetsons somewhere
in boxes.
Oh yeah. So this takes the heat off the Expos for that one.
Yeah, stashed in boxes in people's basements all around Montreal and various parts of Quebec.
Oh, no doubt.
But back to Votto, Griff. Like, I just want to be. I just always feel the need to be clear about these things because people hear things and then they tend to overreact. I don't know what Joey Votto has left. Our opinion last week, I think we shared it in common, was that if at the very least there are photos and obviously now video of Joey Votto in Toronto Blue Jays gear, Toronto Blue Jays spring training gear, that in and of itself is a little bit of posterity because he is one of the two greatest position players this country has ever produced in the sport of baseball. That, as a bare minimum, that would be great. I don't know what one swing means. And I know the ankle complicates things in the near term. But, are there more swings like that in his bat? Can he be a guy for this team? Because if he's healthy, and he's had a bunch of injuries the last couple of years, if he's healthy, maybe he's got one more bullet being a season in his holster.
I think he's a guy that could roll out of bed and hit a line drive because he's been so studious of his craft over the years. It's like riding a bike, the old cliche. But I think that the Blue Jays, when they signed him, had a plan, and one swing, one home run, one ankle injury isn't going to change that plan. And we talked about it last week. I think the plan is that because he showed up so late in camp and really hadn't been in any competitive situations other than maybe keeping himself in shape and going to the indoor facilities and swinging the bat against a machine. But I think their plan is not going to change because of either the home run or the ankle injury. And I think the plan involves allowing Spencer Horwitz to start the season as the first baseman, DH, left-handed hitter. And then if Votto progresses, or when Votto progresses with some time at the complex to catch up for the spring training that he missed, he shows up for opening day and lines up on the foul line and does what you're suggesting, provides as a 26th man a little bit of the competitive edge that he brought to the Reds. And the fact that he's now among peers. With the Reds, he was among kids, talented kids who looked at him like another coach almost, like, okay, he's a pal, but he's a coach age, when all these guys are in their mid-20s or, in Ellie De La Cruz's case, 22 years old. So now he's coming home to Toronto. He's got peers in that clubhouse, Springer, guys his age or almost his age. I mean, Justin Turner. I think that if there's anything left in his tank, which I believe there is, that it will show, and it can't lose in a great move to bring in a 26 man with that much to give.
Yeah, and we'll get into, I guess Votto kind of ties into this and your theory from last week that he'll be on the chalk down the third base line on opening night at Rogers Center when the Jays return back.
And you know how much exit philosophy loves to suggest what should be done for the best interest of fans and the team. This is one of those cases where lining him up for opening day and moving forward, home opener and moving forward, is the best thing for the city, the fans, Joey Votto, and the ball club.
Well, and I think from the ball club's point of view, Griff, aside from the good PR, which I think people will deduce is what you're referring to, it's also a business move, and that Joey Votto is not on the 40-man roster right now.
Right. And the bottom line is that they have a lot of new customers that they're trying to convince to buy those high-priced social club seats underneath with the renovations. They're not all hard and fast baseball fans. They're not all great Blue Jays fans, but they're trying to recruit all these wealthier business people to come, and Joey Votto is the face of that move, that pitch, because he is a face that people in Toronto, even if they're not huge baseball fans, are aware of. And I think that in terms of a business move, that's what you're talking about, and that's what he is. Well, but as well as what he can do on the field and to win ball games.
But also the baseball business move, which is he's not on the 40-man roster, which would mean to add him to the 40-man roster, you would have to designate somebody off or designate for assignment off of the 40-man roster, which would involve exposing that player to waivers and potentially losing him. And you can do that, Griff, in the first week and a half of the season. More secretly is not the word, because all teams get access to the waiver wire every day and they see it, but teams are making a bunch of moves on roster cutdown day a couple days before the season starts. And if you try and sneak a guy through waivers, then say an Ernie Clement, who is out of options, you stand a better chance, or worse chance as the case may be, of losing him because another team will claim him. But if you were to option an Ernie Clement option, if you were to designate an Ernie, I'm not saying it's going to be Ernie Clement, but an Ernie Clement type to make room for Votto 8 or 9 days into the season, chances are the player you designate gets through waivers, and you can get him to the minor leagues, and then you can add him back to the 40-man roster later if you want to bring him up. That's part of it too.
That's a very astute observation, Scotty, because every team, all 30 teams, and you can see it in the Rule 5 draft every December, the fans' angst over allowing this guy to be exposed to the Rule 5, but every team has those guys. So if you designate Leo Jimenez off the 40-man roster 2 days into the season, into the championship season, every team has their own Leo Jimenez. And therefore, it's the best time to do it. If you do it now, people might be able to make room and say, hey, we could use that guy. But if you do it last minute, early in the season, everybody's doing the same thing. So that's a brilliant observation.
And this is more into the weed stuff, but that's what we're here for. And there's no question that starting opening day is an honor. Okay. But beyond that, it's the first game of 162 that matter. And there's no question that being on the opening day 26, being one of the 26 men on the opening day roster is special. No doubt. And most of those spots are taken. Like, you and I haven't spent a whole whack of time focusing on the Vladimir Guerrero Juniors and Bo Bichette's of the world because, well, they're on the team, right? I mean, like but my point is that it's an honor, but that's really the extent of it. And I got 2 words for you, a first name and a last name. Joel Carreño. Joel Carreño. And you're driving in your car right now. You might be stuck in rush hour on the Gardner, and if so, God bless you. And you're saying, idiot, with that Parks logo behind him, apparently, although I can't see it because I'm listening in audio version, not watching on youtube.com/philosophy, but I will when I get home. Who's Joel Carreño? Joel Carreño started the 3rd game of the regular season for the Toronto Blue Jays in Cleveland in 2012. And I don't think beyond an appearance or 2 or 3 again that year pitched for the big league team or pitched in the big leagues at all. So this idea that, oh my God, the opening 26, it's set in stone. It's like tablets in the Old Testament, like hammering it. No, it's an honor, but so much can change and it can change early.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Joel Carreño because I don't remember him pitching game 3 that season, but I do remember being in Milwaukee with an injury, and there's a day game, and the AAA team is in Las Vegas, and they decide that Joel Carreño has to come up and start against the Brewers. I think it might have been the first game of a doubleheader. And so they fly him in. He lands at 7 a.m, no sleep, goes to it was even Miller Park at the time, and pitches the game not very well. I think at one point we looked up his record, it was June 20th, and he gets sent out between games of the doubleheader. So he flies all night from Vegas, pitches, and this is the chance that he got after being sent down from his stint on the opening day roster. I don't remember that, but I do remember being in that clubhouse and seeing this guy with bleary eyes trying to explain why he gave up 5 runs in 2 1/3 innings or what. And we all knew why he did, because he was probably in a middle seat.
So is that his nickname? Anytime we refer to the middle seat from now on, it's Joel Carreño. He would have had a 15-year big league career if it wasn't for the middle seat that one day on the flight to Milwaukee. But
the other name, I think he was on the opening day roster, Simon Pond. You remember Simon Pond? Canadian outfielder. Yes. And he had a fabulous spring training. He was one of those guys that when we talked about great springs a few weeks ago, we didn't mention. But you were just mentioning Carreño and the surprise, and he came to mind, Simon Pond. Everybody was building him up as the next great Canadian outfielder, and certainly did not turn out that way, even though he had a short stint.
Back when I was a young man, many years ago, I was one half of the broadcast duo of Ottawa Lynx AAA baseball games. In fact, my broadcast partner is now the current mayor of Ottawa,
wow.
Mark Sutcliffe, who I also worked with at the radio station.
I did not know any of this.
Yeah, so I was one, and I remember Simon Pond. I don't think he played for the Lynx, but when I called those games, Griff, it was past the Expos. They were the Orioles affiliate.
Oh yeah,
so it was like 2004-ish,
right?
4-ish. Tim Leeper was the manager one of those years, second tenure as Lynx manager. But yeah, I remember Simon Pond's name. Yeah, so we're now digressing way the hell down memory lane.
So let's progress.
Progress. Yeah, digress and progress. Yeah, well,
let's talk about the catching situation.
Progress. Well, okay, yeah. So I want to get into Danny Jansen. Now, this is not going to be a popular opinion if you view this wholly through an emotional lens. So, look, nobody questions what Danny Jansen brings to the Toronto Blue Jays. In fact, I would suggest that Danny Jansen is the heartbeat. Whatever that means to you is the heartbeat of the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's not surprising that it comes from the catching position. That is the one position player who is involved directly in every pitch. And catchers through the decades have made excellent managers, excellent broadcasters. After their playing days are over, you know, they're locked in, right? They're hearts and soul players on teams just because their position demands it, and their personalities are often shaped by those needs and those demands. And Danny Jansen is that. Here's the thing, Griff. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Danny Jansen is injury prone in the soft tissue or bad back or chronic shoulder way, because a lot of what happens to him, it's freak stuff, it's foul tips, it's hit by pitches, it's broken bones as a result, it's hands, it's wrists, it's all that stuff. But
Jansen has more trouble keeping his hands in a safe place than Lauren Boebert.
I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. I want that to breathe. I like that a lot. It needed 2 seconds off the back end, just in case we want at some point to cut that as a clip. I didn't want to jump in on your last words. So, but my point is, Griff. Sorry, my head's now in a Colorado movie theater, and that's well, I mean, I guess there are worse places for your head to be if Lauren Boebert's in the room.
That's what she said.
Yeah. Reliability and availability matter hugely, whether it's good luck, bad luck, whether you're injury prone or it's freak injury stuff constantly. Danny Jansen's hitting free agency next off season, and I argue that right now, and we've got 6 months here, so if he plays 100 games behind the plate and he's involved and he's healthy and he does his thing, great. But if it's another year where he's in and out of the lineup and he's missing a month at a time here and there, I do not see how you can responsibly give a guy like Jansen 3 years and $45 million, 3 years and 48, or whatever it might be. I just don't. It's getting problematic.
His free agency, in fact, is unique in that his performance on the field doesn't matter as much as being on the field, as you pointed out. And like everybody knows that he catches well, he presents well to umpires, he can work with anyone because he was the chosen one for Hyunjin Ryu for the 4 years that he was there. But staying on the field is a problem, and as you point out, a lot of it is the one foul tip of his hand, but it's mostly when he gets hit, because he's decided, and it's only in the last couple of years where the hand injuries have come in play, because he's decided that he wants to be that pull hitter and give you power rather than average and on base, which is good, which is what Danny Jansen is. But when you get your hands out there to pull, that's when it exposes. And he's got the left hand guard that he now wears. He used to be no gloves. He's got the left hand guard that he now wears, but there's way more to it when your hands are out there and somebody comes inside on you and you can't get your hands out of the way. So either he has to adjust in that way, or hope that he can figure it out and luck into playing, as you said, 100 games. He needs to play 100, 110 games, because he's also got a really good catcher as his partner in Alejandro Kirk. So when they're both healthy, that might be the best tandem in the American League in terms of every day, you know, you've got a major league rock out there.
And we're not necessarily talking about 100 to 110 starts, Griff, although I suppose that's possible, but we're probably talking about splitting it with Kirk, 81-81 in a perfect world, but you get to 110 games because Alejandro Kirk is somebody who you absolutely have to pinch run for. If he singles or walks in a tie game, or if you're down a run or two in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th innings, right? And then on the back end of that, Jansen would enter the game and catch the rest of the afternoon or the evening. So, I think that's what we're talking about here when we talk about that games total. And, this is tied into it. Although I want to be, clear that you couldn't have predicted one thing and based your decision off of how it's playing out. But like that Gurriel and Moreno trade for Varsho, it's not good so far. And part of that is predicated on the availability of the two catchers who are major league capable that you do have, that you did keep. And so they need Danny Jansen to be available because there's no obvious third behind Jansen and Kirk right now who can come in and play a little bit, or if one or both goes down.
Yeah, when you have Alejandro Kirk on base and you believe it's his final at bat of the game and you're 1 or 2 runs down or in a tie game, that's when you pinch run. You pinch run for him. So now it used to be that they brought in Dalton Varsho as a potential third catcher because they were planning on having Kirk DH a lot. But then he had such a bad year last year offensively that the DH is out of the equation, and they have Justin Turner, and they have guys that they want to get off their feet for a day like Vlad or Bo or George. So the third catcher option is not for the same reason. But if you've got Danny Jansen in there, who's been hurt quite a bit, obviously, with similar type injuries, and you have pinch run for Kirk, and now you've got Danny Jansen catching the last 3 innings. If something happens to him, at least they have Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who caught in Texas in the major leagues, Varsho, who caught. Neither one should have to catch, but at least they're not sort of locked in or fearful of pinch running for Kirk, which they missed a couple of times last season, and it cost them. So, like, if it is his last at bat, if it's the early in the or late in the 7th inning or the 8th or 9th, then you're going to see Kirk come in. Danny Jansen come in. So he may end up actually playing 120 games if healthy and only starting 90. Because to me, if both catchers were healthy and you were in a short series in the postseason, I would rather have Danny Jansen catching at that point. But that's just me. So, but he needs to be healthy and he needs to stay healthy. And his performance to me doesn't affect his contract for free agency. But like you said, how can you give a guy who can't be relied on to be in the lineup a 3-year contract?
Well, what do you do, Griff?
Competitive money.
It's like, and again, I don't want to overreact to a spring training injury, but also it happened again. And maybe he gets it out. Maybe he gets it out of the way in March. Let's hope. But what if it happens all again? Like, how do you even approach that from a responsible point of view next offseason if Jansen is a 65 or 70 game player who misses the month of June with a broken hand and the month of August with a broken toe?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even do it?
I think that the first thing he has to do is find an instinctive way just to get his hands back in behind his body when he feels an inside pitch, rather than just turning away and having the hand still out there. And there's a way to do it. Instincts rule a lot in a game where the pitch is upon you in less than a second. But he's going to have to figure something out to stay healthy, stay on the field, and get the type of contract that he truly deserves.
Yeah. I have a hard time seeing the Jays being able to responsibly walk up to him and say, here's
But then
three.
who do they have being
Well, that's it, right?
now? Who do they have in the minor leagues being developed? All the guys down there, like Clark has been there for 6 or 7 years. And then at AAA, they usually have a couple of veterans that are signed from other teams. This year it's Peyton Henry and Brian, who might be on the team, Brian Servin, and they're both late 20s and been with other organizations. They have exactly similar qualifications, exactly similar minor league records, pretty close major league records. So it doesn't matter which one you're taking. And for us to sit here and suggest that one is better than the other, we're not down there in the coach's room saying we need Peyton Henry because he handles so and so better, and we don't know. So
Right.
it's a coin flip for Henry and Servin.
Yeah, and it's just a reminder too. Like we sort of talked a lot about the opening day lineup at the beginning and who fits where, and I mean Kevin Gausman's going to be slower than anticipated out of the gate. He's not going to pitch opening day by the looks of it, just given the way that his spring has gone with the shoulder stuff. Alek Manoah, right? There's uncertainty there. Danny Jansen is out. Joey Votto steps on a bat in the dugout, not necessarily, one of your starting 9 on opening day, but another body of consequence. And again, it's just, we're sitting here a week and a half to opening day, Griff. There's a lot more that could happen over the next 8, 9, 10 days before they meander on into beautiful, lovely Tropicana Field.
Yeah, it's funny how pitching has been considered all winter the strength of the Blue Jays, and yet the most question marks are with the pitching, like in terms of the composition of the bullpen. I assume Yariel Rodriguez, who pitched in a game on the weekend, who started a game on the weekend, will be sent to Buffalo. He's in a guaranteed $32 million contract anyway, so it doesn't hurt him to go to Buffalo and get some stretch himself out, because he didn't really pitch. I mean, he pitched as a pro. We don't know where he was in 2023, but he wasn't in Japan. Yeah, and he wasn't in pro ball in the States. So, yeah, he needs to be stretched out. So that's not a question mark. But then you have the depth in that bullpen. You have the Zach Pops and the Nate Pearsons and even Mitch White, who has no options left. With Manoah, we talked about it before. I think it's a blessing in disguise that they don't have to tell him again that we're optioning you until you show you're ready. Because when he came to camp, he was acknowledged as the leading candidate for the 5th starter role, even if there were doubters among the fans and even in the front office. But now they get to work him slowly back in, send him on an injury rehab to Buffalo, see if he can handle it, and then bring him up without using even an option. So, that's an advantage that worked out. The Gausman situation is different, because do you try and slot him into that opener at Minute Maid Park against the Astros? I would.
That's the second series
after the 4-game opening series. You're going to need your 5th starter for that game. And are you going to have Mitch White or Bowden Francis throw that game with all the hoopla against a very good offensive team? Or do you try and ease Gausman in with 90 pitches max, whatever he was worked up to by then? He might have 2 more outings before then at the minor league camp at the player development complex. So do you work him up to 75, 80 and then throw him in the opener? That's what I would do, and that way you only need a 5th starter, which is either Mitch White or Bowden Francis. And for me, they could piggyback. I would rather give Bowden Francis the nod and keep Mitch White as a long man out of the bullpen, because he's got no options either.
Right. I was going to say White's got to stay, or at least break camp.
Yeah,
because he's out of options, right? And you're trying to.
This year's Joel Carreño.
Well, let's hope he's got more of a track record than Joel Carreño. He did it with the Dodgers. The track record in Toronto is not so hot, but
I always thought that the Dodgers, when I was in Montreal with the Expos, I was always so pissed off at the Dodgers because they had like every intern from every Cal State blah 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 in their office. They had like 15 runners every summer, and they were churning out publicity on everybody at Albuquerque, making them sound like the next Joe DiMaggio. And like maybe Mitch White was in that category. Maybe Mitch White was not as good as, but like their PR machine was churning out info and
well,
sort of
it's the old thing, Griff, right?
Years into hitters' eyes while they were trying to hit his fastball or something. You know,
it's the old thing where you can look at it both sides of the coin when it comes to the Dodgers. If you pitched well for the Dodgers, okay, there's something there. And like White had a run with LA where he had a pretty respectable ERA and spread out over a couple of seasons. Like he wasn't, and when the Jays got him, it was, we didn't know too much.
I thought they had something there, but
and that was the intent,
in Buffalo, right? They got him while they were in Buffalo.
That was the intent. And then, but the flip side of the coin is if the Dodgers are giving up on you while there's still team control left, what does that tell us?
Well,
right?
That's part of what I'm talking about, is that they are able to make deals for players who have received much more hype than they've deserved, especially hitters. I mean, you look at a stretch of time from the 60s to 81 at the rookies of the year that were churned out by the Dodgers. And I think that was part of the publicity machine, plus the fact that Albuquerque is so high, it make your nose bleed. And home runs were just flying out of there.
Little altitude there?
Yeah.
not like, kind of like Denver, or like not quite Denver,
not
but
quite
still
there, and not quite as much pub. They don't call themselves a Mile High New Mexico, whatever, you know?
Right. Well, the thing with Denver is it's literally a mile high.
Yeah, and
so you may as well play that up. No?
Yeah. No, they got 5,280 everywhere. That's and like you never heard of Bugs Bunny failing to find Denver. Should have taken a left at Albuquerque.
Yes. That's right. That's right. Bugs Bunny. Real life. Real life. Bugs Bunny. All right. So before we get out of here, it's March 18th as we sit here, Monday, March 18th. We're a week and a half to opening day. So yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and we're probably talking to at least some whose livers are recovering and drying out after a busy weekend, after a fun weekend. Hope you had some green beer. Hope you reveled in it. Spring's almost here, quite literally. Amazing. Baseball's almost here. Amazing. And Griff, you've come up with a list in celebration of St. Patrick's Day. So fire it at me and we'll see how I do.
That would be the number of Patricks that have played in the history of the franchise of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'll start off by saying the greatest GM, Pat Gillick, Hall of Famer. There's your first Pat. Now 8 players. How many can you name?
Okay, so
and that's a surprisingly low number for me in terms of number of Pats.
And these are all first names, right? There's been no last name. Patrick? Okay.
Correct.
So now I've got to get my head out of the whole Patrick thing, because as you alluded to with Gillick, chances are that some of them went with Pat, right? Or all of them went with Pat.
Pats and Patricks, yeah. I'm sure their mothers called him Patrick when they were pissed, but
yeah, when they were pissed. Keep them in line. All right. Patrick. Gotta go with the bullpen coach of the 2013 Blue Jays, who hung around as a consultant for a number of years after that. But Griff, we all remember watching game 162 of the 1996 season, where back when you had to win 20 games, or if you were the only 20-game winner, it probably meant you were going to win the Cy Young. Pat Hentgen went out there and won his 20th game of the season and won the American League Cy Young Award that year.
Yeah, and that's number one. That's first on the list. Might be first overall in terms of importance. But the thing I remember about, and the irony of Pat Hentgen being the bullpen coach, is in '96 in September, before he finished his Cy Young season, we had a discussion outside the lobby bar in Baltimore at the hotel, and he explained why he disliked relief pitchers, because they were failed starters and none of them should be considered for the Cy Young and they should have their own award. And this is when I was saying that, hey, you got a good chance to be the Cy Young winner. And he was saying, well, bullpen guys. And then he ends up being a bullpen coach for the, I reminded him many times of that since then. Yes. And he laughs every time. He remembers the conversation.
That's good. And it's so different now, right? Like some of these relievers are, I mean, they're bred that way.
Josh,
they don't even
won't pitch more than one inning. He doesn't.
They don't even break into pro ball as starters, and then you convert them. It's no, this guy throws 102 coming out of college or coming out of high school. We're tracking him as a late inning guy, and
we're not gonna teach him how to pace himself. Just go out there and throw your 102 and maybe mix in a crinkle pitch, and you're our closer. Yeah,
we need that.
I still disrespect relievers. I do.
I want a pitch called the crinkle pitch. I think that's good. Here's another one. My brother would be upset with me if I didn't mention his all-time favorite Blue Jay, Pat Borders.
Correct. Probably the second most important Pat.
Well, that seems pretty
MVP, fair. MVP 92 World Series.
Absolutely, yeah.
All those sinker ballers not scared to throw the ball in the dirt because Pat would fall on it like a hand grenade at Iwo Jima.
Yes. So we got Lauren Boebert. We've got Iwo Jima. All right, we're
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny. We're on it today. Griff, you're bringing the fire. Yeah, Pat Borders with the best week and a half, 2 weeks of offense of his career at the most important time, helping the Blue Jays win that first World Series in 1992. Awesome defender, and the wad of tobacco, right? Like that was as much not advocating dip, but that was as much the Pat Borders signature as anything else, was that big wad of tobacco sticking out of the side of his face back in the day.
And probably the last two times he's been in Toronto, or I might have seen him at St. Mary's in the Hall of Fame ceremony, he looks like he could still play. He's in great shape. And
wasn't there was a period of time, Griff, not too long ago, I think when I was covering the team, that they were having trouble finding him to get him to come to alumni events. It's like nobody had Pat Borders' phone number for a while there. And somebody was like, Pat's doing great. He lives in the middle of Florida, like inland. He's got a sprawling farm, and he's got 9 kids from age 2 to 27. I'm like, what? Wow. All right.
That reminds me of Mike Zeisberger from the Toronto Sun telling me a story about after they won the World Series in Atlanta that first year, and Todd Stottlemyre and Pat Borders, they were celebrating in the hallways of the hotel. I think it was the Nico in Buckhead or whatever it was, and the kids were all up. It was 2 a.m. Kids were all up running around. And Borders turns to Stottlemyre and goes, "Hey, your son and my daughter are getting along really well. Maybe they'll get married someday." And Stottlemyre looks at him and goes, "My son ain't marrying no daughter of a pig farmer," which I thought was a great line.
And Stottlemyre is like, Mr. Entrepreneur guy now, right? Like if you're connected to him on LinkedIn or whatever, like
so I'm not
his
saying,
thoughts of everything. Yeah.
I'm not saying that line was delivered in that manner or that it's even true, but it was such a great story and a great line that I decided.
My daughter ain't marrying the son of a pig farmer. All right. Okay. Other Pats. Oh God, man.
Well, I'll give you a clue. There's one that goes both ways.
Boy, that could mean a lot of things.
Take it however you want.
You mean a switch hitter?
Not necessarily.
Switch.
How about switch pitcher?
Oh, Pat Venditti.
Correct.
He counts.
He counts. He only counts as one, though.
Yeah. Yes. I can't remember. I was somewhere with John Gibbons more recently, like after Gibby was no longer managing the Jays. He laughed. I want to be very clear. He did not. I think he just would sometimes humor us. Like, I made some comment about Venditti being like, so how, because remember Gibby would walk to the mound and he'd throw both hands up, which was pretty cool. So I think I asked him a question about so which side did you feel worse? He never really answered it. But yeah, Pat Venditti. Oh my God.
There's one more prominent that you should get. He's like around this ball club for 20 some years.
Tabby.
Pat Tabler.
Correct. Pat Tabler, a great immaculate grid guy. If you're looking for Cubs, Cleveland, Kansas City, Toronto, like if you're kind of dying on a vine with who played for Cleveland and Kansas City, Pat Tabler's your guy. Pat Tabler's your guy. Tabby's awesome.
So there's three more.
So many fun conversations with Tabby through the years, especially at lunches and dinners in the media meal room. Just sit back and let him tell stories.
Nice to see that he's got some significant work with the Guardians.
Definitely.
He can commute for weekends to do home series, and he seemed. I talked to him. I did a conversation with him on Griff's the Pitch, and he seems very happy with what he's doing, being able to be at home with his grandkids and his wife and family. So it's great.
Just had a lot of fun getting to know him through my years around the team, and was always really good to me. Other Pats, I'm starting to suffer here now, Griff.
All right. Well, I'll give you two Pat Kellys. Neither one significant. One was a catcher that played 1 year, and one was an infielder who played with other major league teams. But I think the catcher,
Yankees, right? Yankees.
Yeah. The catcher, Pat Kelly, only ever played in the majors with the Jays briefly for a couple of games. But
no recollection.
7, the Pat Kelly, one more Pat.
And I should know it?
No.
Know him? Okay.
Tall right-hander, pitched mostly during the pandemic years. Patrick Murphy. It ended up going, I believe, to the Nationals.
Wasn't he a reasonably high draft pick?
He was indeed. That didn't pan out.
Was he a first rounder, or was it like maybe first?
I'm not sure. Yeah, he was. Okay. He was fairly high. He was considered a hot prospect for a couple of years, but never really panned out with the Jays.
Yeah, he was in that Jacob Wegaspack clique, right? Where there was Wegaspack and Murphy kicking around.
Anthony Kay.
Anthony Kay.
He was
Yeah. He was the one guy they got in the Marcus Stroman trade who pitched in the big leagues for them a little bit.
And when
they turned Woods Richardson into
when I was with the Jays, he pissed me off the one time where he was explaining his uniform and he giggled and went, "Oh yeah, AK, and my number's 47, AK 47." And I'm thinking, oh my God, please.
We love the freedom a little bit, do we?
Yeah.
Freedom. Yeah, preserving our freedoms. Yeah, okay.
So that's
Did you use that
that's
as-
the list.
Oh, you were the PR guy at the
I
time.
was the PR guy. I didn't use it
Right.
anyway.
Right. Yeah.
I just
Well, you
held
used
it
it here.
against them.
That's right. Well, Griff, I mean, as we put a wrap on this episode, lots of fun going through the Pats. The Jansen thing is we're hoping for the best for Danny in terms of his health this year. And I'd love for that to not have to be a topic.
Yep.
But it will be if his health continues to be an issue, and then there are decisions still to make about sort of the back end of the opening day roster. But we're guessing as much as anybody right now. We can go through the guys who are out of options, who have options, and make deductions based on that. But injuries over the next 8 or 9 days could also factor in. So it really still is technically a guess. But when we get together this time next week, we're going to be 3 days from opening day. It is here. The clocks went forward a week ago. It's noticeable now. The days are warming up slightly. I know in the Toronto area, you guys have had some crazy warm weather over a few days here and there. So it's all on the way, man. It's a great time of year.
Yeah, and by the time we get together next week, it'll be down from the final 64 to the final 16. So right now, as we close, I will just give my final four, projected final four, and we'll see how that stands up. I know you're not a big college hoops fan, so we'll leave you out of this. But
Well, can I just say, like, everybody's a freshman, right?
Well, yeah.
Like, how do you even develop?
The big programs are into freshmen who graduate to the NBA the next year. The smaller mid-level programs, they'll take guys that become juniors and seniors, and they'll do okay in the tournament because they have experience, but they certainly don't have the talent of the big programs who are one and done.
Okay, so give us your picks then to get us from. Is this what you want to do? 64 down to 16? Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm going to pick final four, just moving forward.
Okay.
April. UConn in one. That's not going out on a limb, but there are some who think that it's in Yellowknife or White Horse. UConn, but it's going to be
University of Connecticut. Two different
Pete
things.
Walker and George Springer are both University of Connecticut alums, so they're going to be very happy with that pick. North Carolina, because if they get through the first weekend, they normally go to the final four. So I'm suggesting that. Marquette, who's got a returning leader who has been out for 3 or 4 weeks. Marquette, nice Catholic school. Let's go with them in one.
Well, and you're also appealing to Danny Jansen, Wisconsin, right?
There you go. Yeah. And the last one is interesting. It's the Creighton Blue Jays. So let's end with a Blue Jays connection. Creighton.
Okay, so as a guy who doesn't know, is Creighton legitimately good enough that they could? Would they be favorites? In their bracket, or would they have to upset somebody to get to the Final Four? But it wouldn't be that big a surprise. Like
they're 3 seed in their
okay, so they're
region.
good. Yeah.
They're 3 seed in their region, and they were within a win of going to the Final Four last year. So it's not a surprise. They returned 3 of their 5 starters from last year. So I'm saying they take the next step, and maybe not like the Toronto Blue Jays, but they will take the next step.
Well, we'll know a lot more as we get closer to opening day this time next week, barring the unforeseen and a surprise. And Griff and I will join you live on youtube.com/exitphilosophy whenever the Blue Jays make any major moves. Should that for some reason happen, I don't expect it to, but apparently baseball has a bunch of significant free agents who are still unsigned, and opening day is 10 days away. Insane. youtube.com/exitphilosophy for any YouTube lives. You can watch us on youtube.com/exitphilosophy, and you can get all of Griff's work, written, audio, visual, including this podcast, at griffsthepitch.com. Barring the unforeseen, we will talk to you next Monday, and at that point we'll be 3 days from opening day.
And the first power rankings, Major League Power Rankings, are coming out on Wednesday before the opener in Korea. And thank you, Scotty Mac, and thank you, everyone, for listening.